Talk about the future of hustling. Someone put in Hustlers University. If you're not a member, be sure to join. It's free. About, no humans are needed. I've been talking about this for the last 5 years. Where we are heading is a strange place. And I will give you some of the tools and tips that help me, because many of you are where I used to be. I mean, straight up, I was ass out. Lost my job. I had a skill set, but I couldn't use it due to some foolish decisions on my part. Very, very bad place economically. And I really thought about that because one of my friends said, you've forgotten about your boarding house days. And I actually had to disagree. I've forgotten about the neighborhood, but that still drives me for a very important reason. I know that I could end up in that boarding house again if I don't make the proper decisions. And one of the biggest decisions is lifestyle. Maintaining a lifestyle that you can live within. That is one of the biggest keys to building your business and hustling. And many people go ahead and have a lifestyle that is bigger and beyond their budget, and they wonder why they're miserable. But for the future of hustling, I want you to hear me. I want you to hear me. Hear me. It is going to be mandatory that many of you learn how to run a business. Mandatory. That's what's happening, because if you look at what's going on with jobs, they're being automated, outsourced. But going back with the kiosk, someone that posted McDonald's is working on this humanless kiosk to take orders. And it's going to be very, very real. It's going to be very real. So technology is creating a situation that is taking humanity out of simple to do task, boring task, dangerous task, and it's coming. And I mean, seriously, 20 years or less, no humans are going to go into a mine. So it's going to be fully automated. So on the one side, that's great, but on the other side, it's going to decimate the income in certain towns because the humans are not going to be needed. You will have to hustle in the future. You will have to. There's no mistakes about it, because the student loan debacle I shouldn't say the student loan debacle. I should say the degree myth debacle, because that's what generated, is leaving many people disenfranchised and straight up worried, and actually in a worse position than people who do not have a degree. There's a stat that people with college degrees have a greater employment rate than folks who do not. True. That stat is true. But if you lift the stat up, you lift the hem and the dress of the stat and look at the legs, you'll see that many of those college graduates are occupying jobs that formerly were held by high school graduates. It's a lateral shift. It wasn't an upward mobility. So it's not really nothing to brag about, because, okay, you have a college degree, you have $70,000 in student loan debt, and you're making $8.50 an hour. That is not a ooh-wee moment. And it's happening more and more and more across the country. Now, with me and the things that I'm doing, the boarding house experience taught me how to transition from thing to thing, because many of my friends in the late 90s, 2000 thought I was insane. It's like, you don't stick with anything. I had a main goal of freedom and economic prosperity. That never changed. But the vehicles that I rode to those ends often did, and they didn't understand that. But another thing, excuse me, I prepared myself for the emerging world, which is learn a skill, use it, exploit it. Okay, when that skill becomes obsolete, learn a new skill and unlearn what you learned, because you may have to completely forget about all of that stuff that you learned to do the new thing. That is what all of that churn and chaos taught me how to do. And that's one of the things I'm going to teach you how to do. Essentially, you will have to be a catalyst of change going forward in the future. There is no, well, we don't want to do that. No, you will have to not only survive, but to thrive. This is a big problem. And I see it frequently with many of my, I would say, people in the G-verse. You're a corporation. You're an entity. You have talent. You have abilities. I will give you a great example. I was talking to a friend who has about 25 years of legal experience, very high profile legal experience. They were struggling financially because they had completely disregarded the legal experience to do something radically different. In the end, they really came across some hard times. Well, I sat down with them, talked with them, and said, look, you have something that people want. And he was like, no. Well, got together, put him together a workshop. Dude made $7,000 the first week. He was struggling. I mean, just was in a really nasty financial state. And he was just like, gee, I mean, you can ball out on your skill sets, but because your skill set may not be appreciated by you, your family, or you don't think so highly of yourself. Because another thing that we have is if you go ahead and say, you know what, I'm really good at doing this. People, you're arrogant. You shouldn't say that because you're arrogant. Stop being so arrogant. Be humble. And that creates this disconnect where people don't push themselves or say, hey, I'm pretty good, because many people like humble because it means that they don't have to really realize how mediocre they are. It's sad, but true. You should be humble. You shouldn't be arrogant. Arrogance only for pets and all of this other nasty stuff. But in developing yourself and developing your your talents, you have the ability to live the life that you want, but you have to appreciate your talents. I have another consultant client, and he said it several times. Thank you for making me appreciate my business, because making money is simple. You create a product or service that people want. That part is simple. When you bring in humans, then it becomes extremely complicated. And that's the complicated part. It's the human element that's complicated. It's not the process. It's the human element. And once you learn how to do that, then you will never have to worry about money again. But you are concerned. You are an entity. You are intellectual property. You're a talent. There is something, or you may have more than one talent. You may have 2, 3, or 4 talents. But there is something in you that is marketable, that you can make money. Now, let's talk to the young people, because I'm trying to hire a personal assistant, and I'm having trouble because I'm meeting folks who don't have skill sets, or there are people who have 2 degrees and $5,000 a month worth of obligations, and they're thinking, well, because I have obligations, you should pay me $5,000. Well, the job pays $10 an hour, regardless of your qualification and obligations, and that's another issue. The only people that are really going to pay you what you're worth is your people. I say you and your. I kind of stretch the word out. You and your people. You will pay yourself what you're worth, and your people who know you, people who appreciate you, will pay you what you're worth. But walking into a job situation with that attitude is a recipe for disaster, unless you just have some extremely marketable or very unique skills. Back in the day, I knew a respiratory therapist who, and this was when respiratory therapists were really in high demand, who cussed out his supervisor and said, I'll finish up my shift because you're short, but after this, I am out of this bitch. Do you know the next day he went to work at his new job? He got on the phone. He called some of his friends. He says, yes, I'm quitting here tonight. Before he left his shift, a shift supervisor from another hospital called him, asked him about his qualifications. The next day he went over, turned in his paperwork, and he worked that next day. When you got it like that, yeah, you can be a fool, because he was a fool and he did it. But the marketplace allowed him to play that. But until you develop those skills, it's not going to work. Now, this is the thing that many people will debate me on, fight me on, tell me I'm crazy. If you're fit to eat, you're fit to start your own business. If you know the history of this country, America, when everyone was virtually self-employed. You had to build your own, but they were self-employed, but they were extremely self-reliant. They had to build their own house, make their own clothes, grow their own food, dig the well, tend to the cattle. So this notion of, hey, because I don't want to work that hard, I can't. No, you can run a business. It is a skill set that can be learned. It is not, I was born with these business bones. That is a fantasy that we like to tell ourselves. It's like, there are some people who are just natural born leadership abilities and natural born talent. Let that shit go. You can get to the same place. I'm going to give you a name that some of you sports fans are going to remember. Bobby Hurley. Bobby Hurley was not athletically blessed. But when he was playing for Duke, he was probably the best point guard in the freaking country. How did he get there? He worked his ass off. I think it was misfortunate that he was in that accident, because I think he would have been a Hall of Famer. But he worked his ass off. Here was someone who was surrounded by nothing but extreme biological DNA bred talent. I mean, people who could walk up to you and twitch their toes and do a 48-inch vertical. He was surrounded by that stuff in Division I basketball. And not only did he performed at a high level, because he did not buy into that. I'm not black, therefore I can't play basketball. I'm not the tallest guy on the court. He didn't buy into that. He said, you know what? I have some deficiencies. I'm not that tall, so I have to be smarter. I'm not going to get that many shots based on my athletic ability. So whenever I do get a shot, I have to make it count. And they became a force to be reckoned with because of hard work and a process. Now, you can make the choice to hustle. It is better to make the choice to hustle than to have to hustle by force. And I'm going to break it down for you why. When you're doing it by force, it's a panic state. And you're developing some nasty habits. Oh, the rent needs to be done. Okay, so I need to go out here and hustle real hard for 3 or 4 days. Okay, rent's paid. I'm tired. I was hustling for 72 hours. So you develop some very bad tendencies that the only time you become extremely motivated to hustle is when a crisis occurs. That's not a good place to be. When you hustle by choice, there is no crisis. There's an internal compass saying, I need to go out here and make this stuff happen. And going back to the hustle by choice or force dynamic, there are people who are listening to this right now who have a job, and your job is great. 2 years from now or less, you're not going to have that job. And it's not me saying, I hate you. I want you to get fired. No, something's going to happen where your company's not going to need you, and they're going to say, see you. And then some of you are going to get that call back. Hey, we actually downsized a little bit aggressively, and we would like for you to come back as a 1099 employee, as a 1099 as a contractor. Now, for those of you who are really, really slick, you will go ahead and begin, I'm going to talk about this in the Hustlers University, but you'll begin developing an LLC, partnerships, and corporations, because once you do that, you change the ball game. You can still go back for your company and work for them, but they will not be sending you a 1099 because corporations don't get 1099s. You would be doing corp to corp. Totally different, more tax breaks, and it's just a better way to go. Plus, you can build something for your kids. When you start, because this is happening. This is not conjecture or some wild fantasy that I have. This is happening with a great deal of regularity and certainty. is coming. So another thing about making the decision to hustle by choice is you start earlier. Because this is what I'm going to say. Whether you use any of my stuff or you use someone else's, get started building your business this weekend. If you don't have one already. This weekend. And if you have a job, I want you to work harder about starting your business because you have a safety net to experiment, to fail, to learn from your mistakes. You should be working just as hard for you, if not harder than you do on your job, because this thing is coming. And, people think I'm crazy. 2011, I did the degree myth video. I had people on my Facebook page call me an idiot. One of those people, they called me an idiot, got laid off, and I found out about it. And I found out that this person wasn't living the life that they said they were living. They were a facade. They were in more trouble than you could imagine, but was going to fight me about something that they knew intimately to be true. You have to understand. When I did that video, I did it because anger and a great deal of distaste, because I used to believe that lie myself. And in the boarding house, in the heat of a summer night, I figured it out. And when I mapped out the stuff and I looked at the numbers, and I was going to go into finance. I was going to be a stockbroker. Yeah. I was going to try to get on Wall Street. Yeah, that's what I was going to do. That's what I was going to go back to school for. The original plan when I was in high school was to go to Boston University because I did my research and I knew that a lot of people coming out of Boston University were getting into Wall Street because of the direct connections. That's what I was going to do. Thank the universe of all universes that I did not make that decision, or I would be screwed right now in a major way. And another thing, your journey is not going to be easy. I'm not going to say, oh, it's going to be easy. Oh, it's going to be simple. No, it's going to be hard. But can you imagine if you start now and then when you get that, hey, Bill, can I talk to you for a minute? And you go to the conference room and there's your boss and some person you never saw and a bunch of folders on the table. And they're saying, well, here's your package. Instead of panicking, if you take action now, you could sit back and smile and say, okay, I'm about to get some money while I got my business. Oh, okay, I'm just going to take this time. Well, since I'm not working, I'm just going to grow my business. And the reason I'm saying that is I've had several people who were in my resale mastermind group, got laid off, some happened, and they said those very words. They said those very words that, hey, thank you for urging me to get started. I've been hustling on the side for 2 years. And I got laid off today. And I'm not even worried. I am not worried because my hustling income is half of my job income. And all I got to do is tweak it. And since I'm not working, I can just hustle full time. And I've had several people who started hustling early before the doom, before the cataclysmic event, that when it happened, they had a foundation to operate on. This was none of this. Hey, Glendon, I just lost my job and, I need to make $6,000. What can I do in 60 days or 90 days to get to that level? And could you help me out for free? That's crazy talk. That is crazy talk. And so what I'm urging you to do is to really get started now. Don't wait. I want you to start a business and fail. Start a business. It doesn't work out for 3 months. Okay. You've got a lot of experience from that. You could take it to the next business. My first 5 businesses were turkeys. Gobble, gobble. They failed, but each successful launch, because, let's look at it. There was success. I started it. I named it. Each time I failed, I learned so much that the 6th business, I made money my first month. And you can do that too. It's not about how smart you are or connected. There's 2 things: making a decision and discipline. If you can do those 2 things consistently, you will be so far ahead of the pack. And this is something else. The pack if you make the choice to start hustling now, building your business, being an entrepreneur now, when the herd is out there in the streets, you'll be already set up. There's this movie, I only watched half of it. It was about Goodbye World. Essentially, someone that infected the computer networks with this virus, and it shut everything down. Shut cell phone down, computer networks. And this guy who was a tree hugger had this compound with solar power, a well, growing food, and all of his friends came up there from this thing, and they were living and drinking wine. I haven't watched all of it, but when you take advantage of the good times to prepare for the bad times, you're just going to be much better off than your compatriots. You just are. And I looked at that because it's so funny. Because the thing is, if I ever get to that point of buying a house and doing that stuff, that was kind of my plan, except for the compost and organic stuff. I was going to get solar panels, and I looked it up. It's about 60 G's, but you can get enough panels that'll run a very large house. Have your own little solar farm out there and actually get paid from an electric company. Because I feel that we're going to have two classes. Those who are hustling, those who are protected, nepotism, Bilderbergers, all this other stuff, that's going to come into play. But by acting right now and doing certain things, you'll be able to move into that class where you'll become someone that does something in society, therefore need it, versus someone who's consuming off of society and not need it. I can't think of his name, but he is the creator of The Wire. He wrote it. I think it's David Simon, I believe. He said something in an interview, and there was no malicious. It's like we have a society where we're creating people that we don't need. Many people are like, he's racist. No. The truth of the matter is, we have many people out there who are not producing and contributing to society. Our poor people live better than hardworking people in other parts of the world. And how long before that starts to erode? It's not working in France anymore. Greece is bankrupt. Let's see, what European countries are doing fine economically? Germany, oh wow, they produce stuff. Switzerland, oh wow, they make stuff and they have certain attributes for the world. If you look at it, all of the European countries that are doing well actually produce and make stuff. You become wealthy by producing something. It's not about how much money you make. It's about what you produce. I was telling a friend, actually a consult client today on the phone, about a guy here in Georgia. Can't think of his last name. His first name's David, oddly enough. He and his friend started this company when they were 21. They couldn't find jobs, and it was something with accounting software. They sold the company at 26. From 21 to 26, he was building the company. Several $1 million. He was retired at 26 because he created a company. Now, this was in the 80s, 90s. This guy became an angel investor. I want you to think about that. In the time before all of this computers, the internet, Kickstarter, this person created a successful company in 5 years, cashed out. Cashed out in 5 years. And he became an angel investor. And he has a portfolio, and he says the piece that he bit off for investing is what contributes the most to his portfolio. The rest of it's managed in a balanced manner. So this thing of starting a business, hustling, is more than just about money. Because you can go ahead and let's just say this thing that I think is coming. In my head, I'm thinking we're going to hit it real hard in 5 years, maybe 7. You might be able to build a fortune. And when I say a fortune, get your house paid off, cars paid off, money in the bank. That's a fortune for many people. For 95% of the people in the world, that's a fortune. So go ahead and get yourself situated before it hits, and you can sit back and just watch the carnage. I know that sounds very, ugly, like, we should all go out and help people, but I will tell you some secrets here that I've never ever said before. Like I said, this is the most explosive webinar I've ever done. There are several people that I've given free scholarships to all of my products, and I've tracked them. Now, take a grand guess of the people who got the stuff for free, what they did with it. I'll even play the Jeopardy music. Doom, 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 What's your final answer? 6 people. 6 out of about 88. 6. Not even the full percentage point. 6. I was so, and that's why when everyone's like, just put it out for free, I know better. I've done it. I just didn't tell anybody. I've been doing it for years. And 6 people have taken advantage. Now, how many people have taken advantage that have paid for it? Roughly 75%. Yes, even people who pay for it, there's 25% people who don't take advantage of it. So with those numbers, based on my own anecdotal experience, that's why, I like when I hear this, like, oh, yeah. Because this is the thing. When you have to hustle, and I made a choice to start hustling when I bought Earl Nightingale's Lead to Fail. It was $115. It was the cassette tapes. I think I was making $200. I spent half of what I made in a week on some educational material. $115 back in 97 covered a lot of bills. That covered your light bill, your pager bill, because everybody didn't have a cell phone back then. That was a lot of dough back then. And that's why I'm saying when you hustle by choice, you activate and you do things differently. Totally differently. Because if you don't make a decision now, one will be made for you. Make a decision. I'm telling you, this is how bad this stuff's going to get. And when I say, do I see the world, because there's many preppers like shit hits the fan. So I don't see that happening. I see ghettos growing. I see more poor people. And I see a distinct delineation between the classes. You'll see people in neighborhoods like they have it and these people don't. We already have that. It's just going to be more pronounced. And it's going to be ugly for a lot of people. Now, this is why you have to start planting seeds today. The action you take today will determine your life in the future. Going back to what I just said about Earl Nightingale. Buying those tapes in 1997, and, I listened to them, but I really didn't grasp the concepts for about a good 18 months before, because I listened and I was like, I was sitting there in my little room in the hood. Earl's full of shit. That shit's only for white people. I was saying that shit against the wall. I was like, oh yeah, whatever. Then one day it just clicked because I was sitting there arguing with Earl and I wasn't putting any of the stuff into action. I was just like, this ain't going to work. This ain't going to work. Really, I was fighting against my inner loser. My inner loser, he was running around just saying, hey, we ain't about shit. And was rejecting good advice, saying crazy stuff, all in the name of keeping that shit going. Then one day I woke up and I started to do the stuff and I was amazed at how effective it was. But I had to clear my mind, regurgitate so much stuff that was taught to me as a kid to accept and embrace those new ideals. And this is with planting seeds because another thing I'll tell you, like I said, this is explosive. All summer I have been playing with you guys. You have been my guinea pigs in the lab. All of the stuff I've been putting out, it's been a test. It's been a test. I've been every week, test. There'll be more tests, but that was just a massive exploration into feedback that I was getting in Hustle University, YouTube comments, because people were saying, hey, this is what we want. And I came to find out that there was some people who wanted it, but the masses didn't. This whole thing is being built on what you really want, which is to escape the life that you have right now. And let's talk about that. It's not about the money. You need money to help you, but it's really about planting those seeds. If you are a single person and you're not married, you need to take a year and say this. And that's going to sound crazy because this is what's going to happen. You're like, the next 2 years, I'm not getting married. I'm not even dating. I am planting seeds. I am hustling. Now, when you say those words and you mean it, one of the baddest people in the planet romantically will pop up in your life. So it is crazy how that happens. But if they're good, they'll be around when you get to your destination. But plant these seeds, because this is the thing that creates a problem for many people. We live in a society with vastly inflated expectations of when something should happen. Thanks to the internet, starting a business, because it used to be good 3 to 5 years for a business would get to a point where it's profitable and paying the owner. Now, I can say with a great deal of honesty and integrity that if you work your ass off with the right product, the right group of people, you can get to there in a year. Seriously, you can get there in a year, which is amazingly fast. Someone was telling me a story of this guy, because there's a friend of mine, he's a coach. He had this guy who started doing these things. I don't share everyone's stuff because everyone looks at everyone else's stuff for guidance versus just doing their own thing. He did his thing, and within a year, he was up to like $90,000 in income from scratch. Within a year. And you're hearing more and more stories about that. And that's why, if you really look at it from the standpoint that you can untether yourself from the job you hate, if you hate your job, there's some people who have jobs, they love their jobs. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people who hate their jobs and actually make more money, have more freedom. And initially in the beginning, you will not have a lot of freedom. You will be busting for a good year to 2 years, busting. But think about this. Say right now you make 35, 40, 50 grand a year, right? You're not really happy with your position. There's really no opportunities for future economic growth. I mean, a 3% raise is 12, that's nothing. You're still behind. So, say, let's go to the top end. You're making 50. And within 3 years, let's just say 3 years, you've created a business that pays you between $85,000 and $115,000 a year. You've changed your life in 3 years. And why did I say 3 years? It's longer than a year, but it's shorter than the 5 years it takes the average person to graduate from college. Think about that. 3 years, you can create a business that's making you more money you're making now by starting the business, planting the seeds, and moving forward. That's why you need to start a business. I mean, just get started. There's so many people. A friend of mine told me the other day, it's like, I watched your video and it just kind of clicked. Wow, get started. Get started. Is get started. I mean, I get people like, hey, I need to incorporate. No, you don't. You need to get started. You need to pick something. And if it doesn't work out, okay, well, after it doesn't work out, take a sheet of paper, microphone, whatever you do to take notes. This didn't work out for the following reasons. Okay, so next time I do this, and immediately start something else. That's why if you have a job, it is not as detrimental for you to experiment. I mean, you could just go out there and experiment, and you can lose money, and you're still, I'm not going to say okay, because losing money is never okay, but you're in a better situation. Much, much better situation than you were ever in before. Totally different. Because as long as you continue to hustle by force, you're going to be forced into some really nasty stuff. Now, let's just get into this whole thing. A business is not a corp. A business is a transaction. No transaction, no business. So until you do something that earns money, you do not have a business. So you can plan for 6 months. You can talk to your spiritual counselor. You can pontificate with your girlfriends or hang out and talk about this shit for the next 5 years. And that's all you've done. You've talked about it. This is a phenomenon that I see frequently. I have people who are trying to earn their first $10,000 per month before they earn their first dollar. You have got to scale this thing up. And this is why getting started now is going to help you, because you got to earn that first dollar. Because once you're in the first dollar, then you can earn the first 5, and then the first 10, then the first 20, then the first 30. But to go from 0 to 10 G's is an act that most people cannot pull off. I tell people, and this is another thing, get to $500 a month from your side hustle. Okay, you got 500. Okay, it's like, all right, I'm at 500. What did I do to get to 500? Okay, if I do this and this, I can get to 750. I mean, I'm just telling you, and that's the reason I did 30 days to 2,500. The average person, if they can create a side hustle that generates $2,500 a month gross, that is going to be close to, if not more than what they bring home from their job. Or, yeah, in some cases, it'll be more. A friend of mine is a recruiter. He looks at not W-2s. He looks at resumes and applications all day. And he just told me, he said most people are poor. He's like, it's amazing. He's like, these folks making $7 an hour, $8. And he said folks who are 30-some, 40-some years old. So if you're making like minimum $10 an hour, that's only $1,600 a month. If you get a full 40, because you can be working 32 hours and that's still considered full time. And but you're not getting that that extra money. You're not getting, well, not extra. You're not earning that extra money. So you really have to look at this and adjust your expectations accordingly, because one of the things you got to do is get started and have a plan. You have to have a plan. All of this, I'm just going to do shit and see how it shakes out. You can do that. Sometimes it works out. Most of the time it doesn't. And really start focusing on earning some money. And then once you earn that money, reevaluate and like, okay, what did I do to earn this? Because we live in some very exciting times, extremely exciting times, that you can change your life in a year. You literally can now. I wouldn't say that when I first came on YouTube, because I was still from old school economy. And now that I have 5 years plus in the new school economy, well, a little more than that if you want to count eBay and Amazon. But doing this thing is very, very possible to really do well in a year. But you will have some sacrifices. You may not go out as much as you want to. You may not go out to dinner that year. You may not watch TV. That's the price of success. So you've got those things going on. And it's just something to think about. So before we go any further, I am going to come out and see what the people are talking about and answer a few questions. Cameron Pace, smooth. Yes, Isaac is smooth. Tony's got webinar tickets. Jacob's ready to roll. All right. Jacob, yes. I didn't really get into it. I canceled everyone that bought the Hustler coaching and refunded their money, because I'm going to do something totally different with that. So it wasn't you, it was me. Question from Jacob. Do you transcribe your YouTube videos? Do you feel that paying for transcription is worth it for improving channel growth? Loaded question. Transcription definitely works with increasing your searchability for your video. No, hands down, it definitely works. If you do a real short video, it might be worth it. But my videos, I would be paying $150 to maybe $300 to get them transcribed per each. So, if I did 10 videos a month, we're looking at about $3,000 to $4,000. I didn't think that was worth it. I really didn't. So I think in the future that's going to get cheaper. But right now, is something that you have to play around with, but it definitely works, because there are people I know who have their videos transcribed, and you might be able to find someone in Pakistan who can do it for you super cheap. Because I know one guy who did it. Actually, I can tell you his name is Antonio Citrino. He is a real man, real style. He had his, it blew up his channel. But Anthony's a very smart guy. Well, Antonio's a very smart guy, and he had a plan. Also, he's everywhere, but I know for a fact he transcribed his videos, and they have amazing reach. But are you willing to spend that money? Jacob, what do you think of video distribution software programs like TubeMogul, Traffic Geyser? I'm thinking of creating an account for each outlet, blasting videos to every account, then focus on the top 3 to 4. I used them. I didn't like them. That was 3 years ago. See, this is the thing with distribution. Content is king, but context rules the kingdom. So your video getting distributed without the right context, they're still not going to watch it. there's still going to be an issue with that. So you got to think about that. Sundep was interrupted for a bit. Where you were saying about slick corporations and LLC. Essentially, you can incorporate your business, and if you work for another company, like many contractors could actually start their own LLC and get paid corp to corp versus doing a 1099. That's what I was talking about. People that love their jobs have careers. David, great stuff. As always, you're doing experiments with your products. How are you managing going over this data? In the mailing list controls or more mailing list? Facebook, Facebook I'm just doing because a lot of people like it. But everything I'm getting it from my email client. Michelle, my oldest says that YouTube will auto transcribe what it thinks you're saying. Have you heard? Oh yeah, definitely it does, and it gets stuff wrong. See, when you transcribe your videos, that becomes searchable by Google. So you want to make sure that it's 100% correct, because if it is, then word phrases and stuff will pop up in Google search. So that's the problem, and that's one of the things I alluded to. Once they get that fixed, and I think they will, then you won't have to pay someone to do it. Cameron, so Hustler University will be a legit college. I'm not going to say all of that. I'm going to say Hustler University will be effective. Tony, so the cancellation took down the confidence course also? No, I'm going to move those people over to Hustler University. Jacob, at what point did you begin putting ads on your videos? I could not put ads on my videos until late 2011. I didn't put it. I mean, I got the offer to monetize a few videos, and then a few months later, I became a partner. 2012. See, this is one of the things. Everyone couldn't monetize their videos, and when they went ahead and let everyone into the playground, then it diluted the pool significantly. So cool. All right. We've got that. So here's what's happening. And I'm going to open that back up. You'll get an email, so don't worry about this. But I decided, since Hustler University is going to be close to legit, that I'm going to offer charter memberships. Now, everyone that is a current member of Hustlers, of the Hustler Mindset Project, you're coming in. You don't have to worry about it. I'll set you up once I set this up, because all this stuff kicks off Monday. But if you're new and you want to get in, then I got a few things for you. So just to tell you what's going to happen, and this is from the experiment. Y'all didn't know where I was going with this, because one of the things I learned from 30 days to 2,500 was some people got lost. And for people who are not really disciplined or good working on their own, it created a problem. So this new thing is going to be guided. Plus, I'm going to give you the breakdown. The Power of 6 is to help you learn how to organize yourself. Very, very important. The confidence course, so you have the confidence to go out and do stuff. Making a living without a job, that's going to be the philosophy. Hustler economics, that's going to be the math. I'm going to break down some concepts that I did. And also the new and improved 30 days to $2,500. That's going to be the whole curriculum of that course. And there's going to be much more. And when I say, I'm going to actually give people two choices here. You can go ahead and sign up this weekend for the old 30 days to 2,500, and I'll just move you over. Or you can do the charter membership, and that puts you in for the other stuff that's coming in Hustler University in 2015. There's going to be the, the product creation course, the publishing course, because one of the reasons that I held that stuff back is I knew it was going to need more structure, and I finally found a platform